Hi guys. Chapter 11, Mind Control. Off the deep end. I can still remember the email I sent to my agent. I'd made peace with the fact that I'd never reach a firm conclusion on Manson's involvement with the Smiths. I'd accepted that I'd had to break off my reporting and move ahead on my book proposal. I'd even taken a full week off for the first time since I'd started in '99 to clear my head. And when the Jolly West happened. And then the Jolly West happened. What's that? You're not going to like this, I wrote to my agent, pausing before I typed the next line, but I think the JFK assassination is involved. I pause again. And the CIA mind control experiments. Hi, guys. I'm going to pause there and then give you my caveat that this is not a professional or polished audiobook series, but I come to you with interesting books. And this is a book that contains mature subject matter, so viewer discretion is encouraged. All right, and the chat's the best place to be here on my live stream, so if you're here, say hello to me. Like, subscribe, comment for sure. Be in the chat, engage with me, and we'll get through this. This is a real big chapter. I might not get to it all, but it's I've been looking forward to this one. So I rewrote it a bunch of different ways, trying to make myself sound less insane. But when I hit send, I still wished right away that I hadn't. I might lose the one publishing professional I had in my corner. And at this point, I'd understand if he cut and ran. He always seemed to hold his breath when I mentioned a new finding, but now I knew I was pressing my luck. What I'd written was true, though, and I was confident he'd understand. Through my research on the HAFMC, I had learned that yet another shadowy researcher kept an office there, and that his LSD research had clearer, more nefarious ties to the CIA than any of the others. We remember that HAFMC is the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Hi. Oh, Mark. Hi, Mark. Good to see you. And thank you for saying sweet things to me. Oh, here comes the Jolly West. So my question's answered. At least his name wasn't Smith this time. He was Dr. Louis Jolyon West. Jolyon. Why even include his middle name? Oh, because that's what, because that's why they call him Jolly. Jolyon. Maybe it's Jolyon. Anyway, his friend called him Jolly for his middle name, his impressive girth, and his oversized personality. Pursuing West felt like the logical thing to do, but it also meant swimming deeper into the waters of conspiracy, where, as near as I could tell, only the real nut jobs had wandered before me. I thought of Bill Nelson, the creepy Manson memorabilia dealer I had once met at a Denny's. Was there something about the isolation and intensity of this work that appealed to me when it pushed most people away? Yes, one game train. I love that. Thank you, Joe. He said, I'm putting my earbuds in. Read me to sleep. Yes, sir. And I hope it's interesting enough that you want to come back in the morning and revisit. Thank you. All right. Another comment on my hair. I appreciate it. I got those TikTok, this straightening iron, the titanium one with the red light. I call it my Cher straightener. It's the first time I've ever been like blown away by a TikTok purchase. Anyway, thank you. I grew it myself. And I take beef organs at Primal Queen. Anyway, nobody sponsors me, which is cool. All right. I dared to tell my agent about any of this only because I'd found firm documentation for a long whispered rumor about West. He'd used drugs and hypnosis to conduct behavioral control experiments on Americans without their knowledge or consent. That allegation had landed on the front page of the New York Times in 1977, but West had denied it until the day he died. and no one had ever proven the charge. I could, and I thought it was my biggest scoop yet. West's resume was so chock-a-block with intrigue and mad scientist larks that even someone like Reeve Whitson, who behaved like a spy out of a GQ spread, paled in comparison. Born in Brooklyn in 1924, West had enlisted in the Army Air Force during World War II, eventually rising to the rank of colonel. He came to my interest when I learned that he had accepted an office at the Haight-Ashbury Clinic from Dave Smith himself to recruit subjects for LSD research. Earlier in his career, West researched methods of controlling human behavior at Cornell University. During the Korean War, he helped to deprogram returning prisoners of war who'd allegedly been brainwashed. His success earned him national attention. Ooh, I'm giving myself a shadow. I have this new light over here. Jesus is the truth. Christ is king. Jolly West killed an elephant with LSD. Is that? I've heard about that story. Whoa. She's 50 years old, but she dyes her hair. Who, me? I'm only 43. Oh, I am reading chaos. I'm glad you think my tone is soothing. It's refreshing to hear a real human voice reading instead of a machine. That, sir, is what I had been on the hunt for and realized I needed to do my dang self. It depends on the word, friend. Somebody asked me, can you say a word? You can say a word in Spanish. Anyway. So I've said he was born in 24, a colonel. He came to my interest when I learned that he'd accepted an office at the HAFMC, blah, blah, blah. Earlier in his career, West researched methods for controlling human behavior at Cornell University. During the Korean War, he helped to deprogram returning prisoners of war who'd allegedly been brainwashed. Oh, I did read that. His success earned him national attention. Around the same time, he achieved still more fame when he joined civil rights activists like his friend, the actor Charlton Heston, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in marches demanding equal rights for African Americans. Ironically, while he was fighting for the rights of some, he was suspected of infringing on those of others. His detractors alleged that through the 50s and early 60s, at Air Force bases in Texas and Oklahoma, he performed experiments on unwitting subjects using LSD and hypnosis. Because I am in the jam space, somebody asked why I'm pink and yellow. Because it's ambiance. Usually I'm under like, and is it yellow light right now, or is that just an illusion? But I'm usually in my basement, and we're traveling, so I'm borrowing a friend's jam space. The band is Nuisance from St. Paul, and they're pretty rad. They're all a bunch of really cool dudes, too, so... Ironically, LSD... So after John F. Kennedy was assassinated in November of 1963, West psychiatrically examined Jack Ruby, who murdered Kennedy's assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald. Not long after Ruby was due to testify for the Warren Commission, West examined him alone in his jail cell. He emerged to report that Ruby had suffered an acute psychotic break. Weird. Weird. Hi, Mike. Welcome back. Yeah. No, I didn't say they're bad. I said they're rad. They're radical. They're radical dudes. And they make radical music. I am in the Minneapolis area. I know. Well, I almost took my kids to the museum, but my man was like, keep your head on a swivel. And I'm like, if that's what you're going to say to me, we're going to go as a family. I will trust those instincts. Anyway. So, not long before, oh yeah, psychotic break. Sure enough, Ruby's testimony before the commission succeeded only in making him sound unhinged. He could never fully explain why he decided to kill Oswald. Through the 70s, journalists linked West to the CIA's mind control research program, MKUltra. He denied all involvement, vigorously attacking anyone who suggested otherwise. It's almost like that's what you're supposed to do, just vigorously attack. So he kept up those attacks until his death in 1999. Then 74, he'd been diagnosed with metastatic cancer, and he prevailed on his son. He prevailed on his son to help him commit suicide with a cocktail of pills. Well, listen, I think anytime I see somebody talk, because you said crazy liberals, and I agree, but I was a lifelong Democrat, and I was stoked to vote for Trump, and he flipped on everybody, and everything he promised. Are we still talking about Epstein? Yeah, we're still talking about Epstein, and we're still waiting on those files, you know? And this is just further proving it doesn't matter who's in the White House. It's the Epstein class versus the rest of us. And we know what they do. And it was so bad, people stopped looking, and then we stopped talking about it because it's off-putting, it's unsettling, it's unsightly discussion material. I mean, I've lost friends, most recently a good friend of mine, Mike. I think I already told you about him. I had just talked to him, and he kind of cut me off. And then I met you in the chat that day. I think I was talking about it. And then you popped in. But people don't want to look, and that makes things disappear. So I'm over here showing you. And let's talk about it. And anytime you see left and right polarizing content, know that they are trying to keep us divided as we all wake up and notice what's really going on. So, power to the people, y'all. Not these freaking psychopath, Satanist pedophiles running the show. Anyway, sorry about that. I only had a fraction of the information at my disposal when I heard about West, but you can see why I felt I had to expand the frame of my reporting. Yet again, just when I'd promised myself to narrow it, nearly every psychiatrist and researcher I spoke to from Haight-Ashbury had invoked his name, often unfavorably. When I saw that he'd been accused of conducting mind control experiments, I second-guessed myself. This was not an excursion to be taken lightly. West had spent the last decades of his career at UCLA, where he'd become something of an institution, heading the psychiatry department's renowned neuroscience center. The university had framed an auditorium in his honor. When I called the school, I learned that he had donated his papers to them, but since no one had asked to see them, they'd never been processed. No one had so much as opened the first box. I'd be the first reporter to look at them. For weeks, I convinced myself to leave well enough alone. There was more than enough to fill out my book proposal. I didn't need to involve something as vast and intractable as a secret government-sponsored mind control experiment. Experiments, plural. But I had a gut feeling that something important was in those files. It gnawed at me. One day I ran out of willpower. I hopped in my car and drove to the library. Soon I was showing up every day when the building opened, staying for hours to read in the basement, and leaving only when they kicked me out at closing time. UCLA Hospital of Death. Oh my. Michael Knight, I am all on board for that. Christ is King. Hey, do you know Greek? I hear good things about Rosetta Stone, though. Somebody asked if I knew Greek. Are you trying to guess my my ethnicity? Trump fits every characteristic of the Antichrist. Is it Trump? Or is it BB? Is it Trump? Or is it BB? Anytime I see a headline about Trump, except for his hair all day today, which was compelling and interesting, I'm always like, is it Trump or is it BB? Or is it Miriam? That was Obama. Yes, rational morality. Welcome. No, that's a Trump fits every hero. The least of us that you think God would choose to do his work. Try that one on. It's more fitting and not off-putting. But I got off-putting and I lost 20 pounds. Well, good for you. Congrats on that. I hope you did that on purpose and that You're taking good care of yourself, Mike. All right. Faking a hippie crash pad. Late in the fall of 1966, Jolly West arrived in San Francisco to study hippies on LSD. And LSD. They were probably on it, too. The Bay Area. Hang on. Unique, New York. Unique, New York. New Yeek? Unique, New York. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. I thought it was interesting. We're talking about Obama in the chat right now. I thought it was interesting when I saw videos saying you can go and like edit and take apart the layers of his birth certificate on the website for the White House. And I'm like, why would they do that? And why would they keep it up there after it's been exposed? And I tried it, and you can lift off the text. You click on it and drag it, and it moves. Which mine can't do that. Yes, thy will be done. Okay, so the last couple of days before I left my laptop at home, and I shouldn't have, I have been saying the third step prayer before I start. And I say that with you guys. I tend to pray. I haven't been in Pakistan. Mohammed, thank you for chiming in and let me know you're here. But the third step prayer, thy will be done. It's, gosh, let me see if I can remember it. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Oh, and it's something like, something about my my character or whatever, like fix me so that my healing can bear witness to those I could help. Essentially, I'm like, use me and make it so I can connect with people. We are on Dakota. Welcome back. We're on chapter 11, mind control. You weren't able to find the book today? That's all right. After chapter 11 is chapter 12, and then it's the epilogue, and that's a good chunk of the book. Here's the rest. This is the epilogue and notes. So, and the rest, and sites and everything. So we're almost done. And then we'll have to do another book poll to see what we're going to do next. So like and subscribe, and go with me on this journey while we make it all make sense, you know, together. We're faking a hippie crash pad, though. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was saying the Bay Area, and I stumbled. So, all right, the Bay Area had seen an unprecedented migration of middle-class youth and an explosion of recreational drug use. The West felt he had to witness it firsthand. He secured a government grant and took a year-long sabbatical from his professorship at the University of Oklahoma, nominally to pursue a fellowship at Stanford, although that school had no record of his participation in the program there. West was a square, tall, broad, and crew-cut, with an all-American look in keeping with his military past. If he wanted a good glimpse of the hippies, he'd have to blend in. He started cobbling together a new wardrobe and skipping haircuts. At least he had a solid knowledge base. The summer of love had yet to come, and the Tate LaBianca murders were still years away. But West would effectively predict both of them. In a 1967 psychiatry textbook, he contributed a chapter called Hallucinogens, warning students of a remarkable substance percolating through college campuses and into cities across the United States. It was LSD, known to leave users unusually susceptible and emotionally labial. L-A-B-I-L-E. Is that labial? Ew, sorry. So do you know, have you heard of scolpamine or something? Scolpamine or something? The devil's breath. And they can blow it at you through a straw or something and tell you, we're going to rob your apartment. You've got to go let us in and help us carry the heavy stuff. And you will go and do all of that. Vice did a special on it, and I was like, holy shit. What? And then I think that happened first because when the Batman theater shooting in Colorado, when I lived in Colorado, I lived in Aurora, in fact, where it happened. Like that guy, he just looked bewildered, and I'm like, wow. And it kept coming out like he had an arsenal. A college student couldn't afford to have all the things he had. He even booby-trapped his apartment or something. Like, what? Some college kid with orange hair? You're telling me? You know what I mean? I didn't buy it from the start, and that's just one that we stopped talking about altogether also. And with substances out there that can make you so susceptible, like, it's pretty incredible. That sounds familiar to hypnosis, the devil's breath stuff. Yeah, scopolamine or something? Yes, Mike Hunt. Hi, Professor, welcome. He was dressed up like the Joker? Joker had green hair, though. He was just some kid, man. He was just some burnout kid who could then afford hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not like close to $1 million worth of gear. I don't remember the numbers, but I remember it was huge. And it's like, how come we're not talking about where this all came from? It looked as if he were supplied it to me, but who am I? So, unusually susceptible and emotionally labial, I think. Oh, right. That made me giggle, as it caused a loosening of ego structure. That language was reminiscent of the reprogramming spiel that Charles Manson would soon develop, urging his acid-tripping followers to negate their egos. When West cautioned against the LSD cults springing up in America's bohemian quarters, he described exactly the kind of disenchanted wanderers who'd flocked to a personality like Manson's in the years to come. West had a hunch that alienated kids with a psychological desire to withdraw from reality would crave shared forbidden activity in a group setting to provide a sense of belonging. Another paper by West, 1965's Dangers of Hypnosis, foresaw the rise of dangerous groups led by crackpots who hypnotized their followers into violent criminality. Contrary to the prevailing science at the time, West asserted that hypnosis could make people so pliable that they'd violate their moral codes. Scarier still, they'd have no memory of it afterwards. I have dyslexia also, and ADHD. Did I already say that? Pamela Anderson, when she was really young, she's still a pretty little bombshell. But I hear you, Mike. Anyway, all right. West, okay. Contrary to the prevailing science at the time, West asserted that hypnosis could make people so pliable they'd violate their moral codes. Scarier, they'd still have no memory of it afterwards. Whoops, I already read that. I'll finish it. Just because such outcomes were rare, he argued, didn't mean they were impossible. West cited 2 cases to back up his argument: a double murder in Copenhagen committed by a hypno-programmed man, and a military offense induced experimentally at an undisclosed army base, maybe Fort Huachuca. So he personally knew, or is that Air Force? You're going over data on this day coming up, and I think about 65% of humans will be wiped out by a non-human event. Starts in 4 days. Dang. Who? You withered. How come you didn't predict that would happen to you? Who? This guy? Michael John Flock. Interesting you have Flock in your name. All right. So, two cases, a double murder, a military offense. He personally knew of 2 other instances, and he had heard of an excellent authority of 3 or more, but he didn't elaborate. Later, I'd get a sense of what or who he might have been in, or might have had in mind. When he arrived in Haight-Ashbury, then, West was the only scientist in the world who'd predicted the emergence of potentially violent LSD cults. How had he learned so much about acid? You'd never know from his published writings that he'd conducted innumerable experiments with it. in San Francisco, he hoped to conduct still more. In the hate, West found a group of kindred spirits at David Smith's new clinic, where plenty of shrinks from the straight world were basking in hippiedom. Getting his bearings at the HAFMC, he arranged for the use of crumbling Victorian house on nearby Fredericks Street, where he would open what he described as a laboratory disguised as a hippie crash pad. This would serve as a semi-permanent observation post, granting him an up-close and personal look at the youth. He installed 6 graduate students in the pad, telling them to dress like hippies and lure itinerant kids into the apartment. Passerbys were welcome to do as they pleased and stay as long as they'd like, as long as they didn't mind grad students taking copious notes on their behavior. The pad opened in June of '67 at the dawn of the Summer of Love. West took pains to ensure that it felt realistic, decorating it with posters, flowers, and paint. Thus was born the Haight-Ashbury Project, or as he called it, the HAP for short. For the next 6 months, he undertook an ongoing program of intensive interdisciplinary study into the life and times of the hippies. To drum up hippie business, West stopped by the HAFMC, where David Smith could furnish willing subjects. Smith even gave him an office. Having a nationally recognized researcher like West working out of the HAFMC would attract sorely needed government funding. Frederick. It's 6 bus stops away. No kidding. Millie, welcome. Google will tell you about some of the things you will visibly see happen in the sky on August 12th. Have you ever real Iceland been researching storms to hit? What do you mean, like HARP type activity? PSA, humanity is cruel, the world is broken, but don't forget that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's all about attitude, isn't it? We all take a second and look at the torn world we live in. Love you. Dude, what's your name? Oh, I don't know even what to call you. G? I'll call you G. High roller. Oh my gosh, I did that on a what was I reading? The Protocols? Was it when I was reading the Protocols, or was it Tavistock Institute? I found a baby bird. He didn't make it. He didn't make it, but I gave him a nice exit. Millie, I'm reading Chaos. Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. Your phone died. Divining Rod. Plug it. What am I? How are you then typing? Greenland and Iceland, huh? On August 12th. You know this book? Well, I have a whole playlist up until this point in the book if you want to get caught up, or if you want to just hang out in the chat while I read. Nope. Thanks, Ivan. Did I get that right? Is that why they're all making bunkers, Michael? Even the ballroom, I heard, is a bunker. Or who was that? Ian Carroll's talked about that, but I fell asleep and I never went back to watch the rest. All right. He hoped to conduct more still. In the hate, West found a group of kindred. Oh yeah, HAP. Here we go. Where was I? We helped him with the research, Smith told me. He was sympathetic to West's project, even though he admitted that he had never bothered to find out what it was or what its objectives were. He assumed that West, like himself, was diagnosing psychedelic patterns in the counterculture, trends that others had dismissed as boorish fads. They came over and interviewed kids that came into our clinic, Smith said of West and his students. He wanted to know, what is a hippie? Smith reminded me that this was a very new population. The fact that large numbers of white middle-class kids would use illicit drugs was a total mind-blower. Who is paying for all this, pause at punctuation. According to records in West's files, his crash pad was funded by the Foundation's Fund for Research in Psychiatry, Inc., which had bankrolled a number of his other projects too, across decades and institutions. For some reason, soon to be clear, I concluded that the foundation fund was a front for the CIA. This wouldn't have been the agency's first distinguished laboratory in San Francisco. A few years earlier, the evocatively titled Operation Midnight Climax had seen CIA operatives open at least 3 Bay Area safe houses disguised as upscale bordellos, kitted out with one-way mirrors and kinky photographs. A spy named George Hunter White and his colleagues hired prostitutes to entice prospective Johns into the homes where the men were served cocktails laced with acid. White scrupulously observed the ensuing activities, whatever they were. The goal was to see if LSD, paired with sex, could be used to coax sensitive information from the men. Something of a psychedelic honeypot experiment. See how relevant all this is? White so enjoyed the proceedings that he had a portable toilet and a mini fridge installed in his side of the mirror, so he could watch the action and swill martinis without taking a bathroom break. He later wrote to his CIA handler, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill and cheat, steal, deceive, grape and pillage with the sanction and blessings of the All-Highest? Pretty good stuff, brother." Kind of sounds like maybe a Zionist, if I could say that out loud. West knew better than to commit such sentiments to paper. But by 1967, he'd toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards too. And that was in quotes, because that was quite the, anyway. Before he moved to the Haight, he supervised a small study in Oklahoma City, hiring informants to infiltrate teenage gangs and engender a fundamental change in basic moral, religious, or political matters. The title of the project was Mass Conversion. As I was soon to see, its funds came from Sidney J. Gottlieb, the head of the CIA's MKUltra program. In other words, as I said to David Smith, it was all but certain that Jolly West came to the Haight to answer a more ignoble, it's got a G there though, ignoble question than what is a hippie. What does ignoble mean? Anybody? 38 and see OG's up and down the Tenderloin struggling. Yeah, the Tenderloin. I mean, I went there, 15 years ago or so, and it was brutal. But it still had like high-end, I don't know, not the Tenderloin. But that was just a place that we were all encouraged to avoid, for sure. Paperclips doing paperclip things. All right. That would be a cover project, I told Smith. Oh, shit, he said. Anyway, this is an asphalt Sherwood forest. No, is this an asphalt Sherwood forest? What was Jolly West really up to in San Francisco? Hanging out at his crash pad and roaming the streets of the Haight? He tried to pass as an apostle of free love, but few were fooled. Bob Cornrich, a co-founder of the HAFMC, saw through the ruse right away. West walked into the clinic one day, and my first reaction was that he'd read too many Tim Leary interviews. Conrich told me, he wrote to me, "My bad, y'all. Let me get in the pocket. I will." So West was a careerist in hippies' clothing. What I remember is his enthusiasm for the whole summer of love thing, which seemed exaggerated and insincere. Cornrich was right. West's excitement was a sham, his feelings for hippies dripping with condensation. And, like, those are the same things that make us not interested in what Erica Kirk has to say, because she seems like she's cosplaying a Christian woman, a Christian widow. She's cosplaying her widowship. And, like, you know, before we became fluent in our native language, we learned emotion. Children, babies, are fluent in emotion. They read their parents. because that's all they know. I am currently in the Midwest. I moved here from Texas. I've lived in several different states, but I am from Reno, Nevada. Ish. Is it? I love, are you guys all from or in California? Divining Rod, Millie, Mike? No kidding. Fernley, no kidding. Wow, neighbor. How old are you? Reno rules. Yeah, man. I was there in the 90s. It is very different. There was like, I think, 20,000 people in Reno in the 90s, and now there's hundreds of thousands. The Flamingo. Downtown San Fran, Austin. That's right, California native. The real Yash, you're back. Where are you from? Be nice or you're going to get booted, my friend. You're 43? Same. Interesting. My friend Angie was from Fernley. She was a foster kiddo, and she said that there were plenty. Awesome, Millie. I'm so glad. I'm glad that you stumbled upon the the channel. I know you're not nice, but I like having you here. I like seeing familiar faces. Where is Zeus? I don't know. It might be too late. He's a working man, you know. You're 47. Welcome. Welcome. Loose, 72. Yes. I do. Yash. All right. I don't even have a moderator in here, so if you do say heinous things, then they'll just hang for a while. Maybe I won't notice and you can stick around. Stir in the pot. Yeah. Well, don't share it with people who don't like somebody reading to them, because I don't want to mess up my algorithm. I like it when people accidentally find me, because then I know that they're going to like it. And I've been working on my algorithm for some months now, and it seems to be working. And I was surprised. We're close to a Pantera moment. Always. All right. Oh yeah, disingenuous. He was like cosplaying to be a hippie. Conrich was right. West's excitement was a sham. His feelings for hippies dripping with condescension. He soon concluded that the constellation of sex, drugs, and communalism shining over the hate that summer was doomed to fail. The very chemicals that they use will inevitably venerate them as individuals and bleed the energies of the hippie movement to its death. He called this an ineffable tragedy, but it's hard to imagine he saw it that way. For West, the failure of the 60s idealism was the most desirable outcome, one that he was quite possibly working towards. That's so interesting. Anytime we've gained any kind of momentum as society, we get cut down. A copy of his resume from this period hints at the thrust of his research. He was at work on a book called Experimental Psychopathology, The Induction of Abnormal States, but he never published it. Nor on the surface would the induction of abnormal states dovetail with the stated goals of the HAP. By the early 70s, he removed the title from his resume and never mentioned it again. Stephen Piddle, the forensic psychologist, worked briefly with let me start, okay, over. When I read, I always look ahead while I'm stating the word. So I'm like this across the page, but sometimes I'll stutter and I'm like looking back then, like, did I say that right? And then I start tripping over my words. So Stephen Piddle, the forensic psychologist, worked briefly with West in 1968 and referred to him as the only benevolent psychopath I'd ever met. The man could charm the pants off anyone, and manipulate people into doing all sorts of things they didn't want to do. They said that about Charlie, too. Jolly West and Charlie Manson. Kindred spirits. At the Hap, though, West's motives were so vague that even his charm didn't suffice. No one had any firm grasp of the project's purpose, even those involved in it. The grad students hired to man West's crash pad laboratory were assigned to keep diaries of their work. In unguarded moments, nearly all these students admitted that something didn't add up. They weren't sure what they were supposed to be doing or why West was there. And often he wasn't there. Unlike the grad students, he didn't live at the pad, but he wasn't putting in long hours at the HAFMC either. Those who knew him at both places and elsewhere in his long career recalled his chronic absenteeism. One of the diaries in West's files belonged to Kathy Collins, a Stanford psychology grad student who lived at the Hap pad that summer. The experience was a huge letdown for her, aimless to the point of worthlessness. She was getting paid to do nothing. When crashers showed up, no one made much of a point of finding out about them, she put down in neat handwriting. More often, hippies failed to show up at all, since many of them apparently looked on the pad with suspicion. What the hell have I gotten myself into, and what the hell is Jolly doing? It's like a zoo. Is he studying us or them? When West made one of his rare appearances, he was dressed funny, like a hippie. Sometimes he would have friends in tow, costumed just as poorly, Collins wrote. The rest of us tended to look to them in trying to understand what we were supposed to do or what Jolly wanted. Their general reply was that it was a good opportunity to have fun. I gathered that they did. They spent a good deal of the time stoned. Ennui, ENNUI, set in. Hoping to feel useful, Collins and the others made inquiries about helping out at the HAFMC. Listen, can somebody Google that, ENNUI, or tell me what it means? I generally have my laptop and I'm able to do that. Smoke shops, positive energy vibes. What are you saying? If the damn news starts reporting crap happening between August 12th and 18th, like the 10-foot sea level rise, California massive flooding, head north, 395, at least 200 plus miles, I think the water surge will reach. No kidding. Bro, I mean, I'll see you here on the 11th. We'll reconnect. Or just stick with me and we'll just meet up in the chat. Tell me where you're getting this. I'm interested. And if you'd like, you can post some things in my community area and we can meet up there too. Oh. Into Reno only because of the speed and the height of the southern tide. Well, Reno is in a valley in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Ennui means a deep feeling of weariness, listlessness, and dissatisfaction. Thank you, Escape Waco. What a neat name. I feel like you're in the right place too, huh? Anyway, thank you, Dakota. Swanky. Thanks, guys. That's the support I need in my life. I thank you. I celebrate you. Who celebrates? Oh, teenage apathy and indifference. She represents it. Who do you mean? Erica Kirk? I'm like, that's what she walked away from. She seemed to be like a teenage girl, just buck wild. That post, I get gay on that tequila or something, and she's sitting there looking at something very dreamy-eyed, lustful into her phone. And it's like, that's that Christian Proverbs friggin' wife. Oh, Charlie, poor guy. Anyway. Come along on our adventure, yes. Escape Waco 1, I meant. All right. Are you correcting me because I didn't say it right? Waco, we ain't coming out. How do you spell, or how do you say Inui? Am I saying it right? Hello, Saint Rage. I love you too. Welcome. Okay, at the height of her frustration, college wrote like someone trapped in an existentialist drama. I really don't know whether to laugh at Jolly or take him seriously, she fumed. I feel like no one is being honest and straight, and the whole thing is a gigantic put-on. What is he trying to prove? Is he interested in drugs? That is clear. He is interested in drugs, that is clear. But what else? So brainwashing with the love drug. Collins was right. West was interested in drugs. His professional fascination with LSD was practically as old as the substance itself. And he was one of an elite cadre of scientists using it in top secret research. Lysergic acid dithalamide. Lysergic acid. How come that word looks, what was I thinking it was? Dithylamide. Lysergic acid dithylamide was synthesized in 1938 by chemists at Switzerland's Sandoz Industries. They must have had one heck of an evening or, summer. But it was not introduced as a pharmaceutical until 1947. In the 50s, when the CIA began to experiment on humans with it, it was a very new substance. Be that as it may, what's the pharmacological application, do you figure? Brainwashing. That was a silly question. Oh, my puppy dog's here. So be that as it may, the agency was not inclined to exercise caution. Almost right away, government scientists saw LSD as a potential Cold War miracle drug. That is true. Why am I forgetting? I just brain farted that. Like, LSD is good for lots of things. Like regrowing your neural connections and so forth, and even brain cells in low doses. But who knows, in large doses, you can wipe somebody's personality with an IV drip. Anyway, almost right away, government scientists saw LSD as a potential Cold War miracle drug, the key to eradicating communism and seeding global democracy. Its effects on individual minds were extrapolated into groups, voting blocs, and entire populations. Among psychiatrists, artists, and curious recreational users, LSD augured a different sort of liberty, but they too regarded it with awe. Albert Hofmann, the Swiss scientist who discovered its hallucinogenic qualities in 1943, described it as a sacred drug that gestured toward the mystical experience of a deeper comprehensive reality. The actor Cary Grant, on the advice of his shrink, took some 100 LSD strips during their weekly meetings in the late 50s, experiencing a rebirth and picturing himself as a giant penis launching off from the earth like a spaceship. Charles Fisher, a drug researcher who worked with David Smith, described to me the early perceptions of acid, when trips were planned like literal journeys. Very few people took LSD without having somebody being a trip leader. Fisher said, the suggestibility from LSD was akin to hypnosis, and Jolly West, of course, had known well enough to study the two in tandem. You can tell somebody to hurt somebody, but you can call it something else, Fisher explained. Hammer the nail into the wood, and the wood perhaps is a human being. It could result in some violent activity, even though LSD was considered a love drug. The global superpowers considered it anything but. Full-fledged U.S. research into LSD began soon after the end of World War II, with American intelligence, when American intelligence learned that the USSR was developing a program to influence human behavior through drugs and hypnosis. The United States believed that the Soviets could extract information from people without their knowledge, program them to make false confessions, and perhaps persuade them to kill on command. The CIA, then in its infancy, saw mind control as a natural extension of communism, spreading like fire, where the forces of unreason prevailed. In 1949, it launched Operation Bluebird, a mind control program whose chipper name belied its brutal ambitions and its propensity for trampling on human rights. In its yen to best the Soviets, The CIA tested drugs on American citizens, most in federal penitentiaries or on military bases, who didn't even know about, let alone consent to, the battery of procedures they underwent. Their abuse found further justification in 1952 when in Korea, captured American pilots admitted on national radio they sprayed the Korean countryside with illegal biological weapons. It was a confession so beyond the pale that the CIA blamed communists. The POWs must have been brainwashed. The word, a literal translation of the Chinese "she now," didn't appear in English before 1950. She now, is that brainwashed? It articulated a set of fears that had coalesced in post-war America. Soviets were using guile to force an evil philosophy on the world. Technology had destabilized every atom of human nature, and a new class of chemicals with unpronounceable names can reduce people to machines. The human mind, like any other appliance, could be rewired and automated. Once the Korean War was over and the American POWs returned, the Army brought in a team of scientists to deprogram them. Among those scientists was a young psychiatrist from Cornell, Dr. Lewis J. West. He would later claim to have studied 83 prisoners of war, 56 of whom had been forced to make false confessions. West interviewed them at length, undoing the treacheries of the thought reform they'd undergone in enemy hands. He and his colleagues were credited with reintegrating the POWs into Western society, and maybe more important, getting them to renounce their claims about having used biological weapons. Even though they did. West's success with the POWs gained him entry to the upper echelons of the intelligence community. As the Cold War bred paranoia, the CIA accelerated its mind control efforts, and West, I learned, carved out a niche he could occupy for decades to come. Initially, the agency wanted only to prevent further brainwashing by the Soviets, but the extraordinary power of psychotropic drugs, particularly LSD, was hard to ignore. Thus, a defensive program became an offensive one. Operation Bluebird morphed into Operation Artichoke, a search for an all-purpose truth serum. Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a poison expert who headed the chemical division of the CIA's tactical service staff, had convinced the agency's director, Alan Dulles, that mind control ops were the future. Gottlieb, whose aptitude and amorality had earned him the nickname the Black Sorcerer, developed gadgetry straight out of the schlocky sci-fi. High-potency stink bombs, swizzle sticks laced with drugs, exploding seashells, poisoned toothpaste, poisoned handkerchiefs, poisoned cigars, poisoned anything. Mind control became Gottlieb's pet project. Dulles, convinced that the American dream was at stake, ensured that Gottlieb was well-funded. In a speech at Princeton University, Dulles warned that communist spies could turn the American mind into a phonograph, playing a disc put on its spindle by an outside genius over which it has no control. That's exactly how Chantix felt for me. It was as if somebody put a whole new cassette in my head. Humans are more easily trained than my dog. Yeah, it's true. It's a 70s movie called Blue Sunshine about LSD patients going rogue. Scared the hell out of me as a kid, but I still bought acid off it. Yeah. Same. I mean, I didn't, in your situation, mine was different. I was still in like middle school. But I think really, never mind. Let's keep going. The Black Sorcerer, poisoned items. Dulles, convinced the American dream was at stake, ensured that Gottlieb was well funded. I had a little spit fly out. So did you see that? I wonder if the light made you see it. Where was I? Just days after those remarks, on April 13th, 1953, he officially set Project MK Ultra into motion. The project's broadest goal was to influence human behavior. And that is what social media was designed to do. Because they were saying, and I was getting trained in order to do sales on social media, like on a video. Somebody was saying, if you are purchasing ad space on social media, you are purchasing, what's it say? The stinking crap. You're purchasing a change in behavior in people. So that's where your investment goes. Should I bring this down so you're not just seeing ceiling? It's not this. Oh, there it is. It's interesting, weird phone. Now, how did I lose that sentence? I just looked up. Sorry. This happens too, so it's just part of it. Experimental psychopathy. Oh, the only benevolent psychopath. No, we're down here. She was getting paid. Let down, aimless. What? One of the diaries, West files? Oh! A page turned. Brainwashing with the love drug. That's why I lost it, because I turned the stinking page. What happened? My bad. This is embarrassing now. Almost right away, the government science. Yes. Trip leader. The global superpowers considered it anything but. What? Oh, the love drug. Full-fledged U.S. research into LSD began at the end of World War II. Kill on command. Really? I turned 2 pages? I need to straighten my spine. They're abused. The CIA then in their infancy saw mind control as a... She now brainwashed once the Korean War was over. American POWs programmed, deprogrammed. Shit. I'm sorry. Black Sorcerer. There it is. We're back. MK Ultra in emotion. To influence human behavior. Shit. I'm on page 353. You can help me follow along. Cool. Why do you have the book? You must. Why would you ask? All right, the project's broadest goal was to influence human behavior. Under its umbrella were 149 sub-projects, many involving research that used unwitting participants. Having persuaded an Indianapolis pharmaceutical company to replicate the Swiss formula for LSD, the CIA had limitless domestic supply of its favorite new drug. The agency hoped to produce couriers who would embed hidden messages into their brains, to implant false memories and remove true ones in people without their awareness. Who recently talked about this? What's her name? Ariana Grande. She straight up, just in a reporter's camera and face, said, I went through a program and they erased memories. And now she, days after she released her new music video where she's covered in blood? Same with Perez Hilton. Only that wasn't a music video. That was his on-air crash out where he's sawing himself. That was incredible. But it's like, really? What is that? And why is it happening? We're making it make sense, y'all. To implant false memories, to remove true ones, people without their awareness. To convert groups. To convert groups to opposing ideologies and more. Interesting. I was thinking about that earlier because I flipped. I mean, I blamed COVID. I was a staunch lefty, and then I realized, man, all this shit that I'm outraged over, like I was told, I was handed a script essentially. And I realized like that was programmed into me. And then I was stoked about Trump, and now I realize, oh, maybe this was just all part of the deal that we needed to see. It doesn't matter who gets into the White House. It can be anybody, but they'll turn you into a monster. They'll turn you into a robot monster. So the loftiest objective was the creation of hypno-programmed assassins. In their defense, the CIA spooks weren't above experimenting on themselves. The same substance that held the promise of controlling minds, the promise of controlling minds and quashing communism was used as a churlish office pranks, was used in churlish office pranks. That was hard to say, with agents quietly slipping LSD into their colleagues' drinks to achieve much-needed first-hand knowledge. A plan to spike the punch bowl at the CIA Christmas party was quashed when higher-ups reminded the office that it could cause insanity. The most sensitive work was conducted far from Langley, farmed out to scientists at colleges, hospitals, prisons, and military bases all over the United States and Canada. You know, interestingly, my brother told me a story when he was in boot camp or freshly out of boot camp. He drank a drink he said was formaldehyde and lost his ever-loving mind and ended up crawling back to the barracks. And I wondered if it was formaldehyde. I wondered if it might have been something else. So that happened in bases all over the United States and Canada. I'm not sure if I finished that sentence before I got excited to talk. The CIA gave these scientists aliases, funneled money to them, and instructed them on how to conceal their research from prying eyes, including those of their unknowing subjects. Feeling that it was their patriotic duty, the scientists accepted their secret mission in defiance of the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. And I just posted something about the organ donation. I recently took the donate sticker. It's not a sticker anymore. They print it on. In fact, they come stock in Wisconsin, I guess, because they had to put some kind of embossed color or image over where it says donate. Don't do that. You are more valuable to them as organs than you are as a patient. If you get into a wreck, just heads up. So, in 1949, at the Nuremberg trials that adjudicated the crimes of World War II, the United States adopted the International Code for Human Experimentation. A person must give full and informed consent before being used as a subject. MK-Ultra scientists flouted this code constantly, remorselessly, and in ways that stupefy the imagination. Their work encompassed everything from electronic brain stimulation to sensory deprivation to induced pain and psychosis. They sought ways to cause heart attacks, severe twitching, and intense cluster headaches. If drugs didn't do the trick, they'd try to master ESP, ultrasonic vibrations, and radiation poisoning. One project tried to harness the power of magnetic fields. Operated on a strict need-to-know basis, MK-Ultra was so highly classified that when John McCone succeeded Dulles as CIA director in late 1961, he was not informed of its existence. Fewer than half a dozen agency brass were aware of MK-Ultra at any period during its 20-year history. That's in quotes. Cappy, we're reading Chaos. Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret Life of the Secret History of the 60s, which is fascinating stuff. We're almost done, but I've got a whole playlist of the book up until this point. All right, when Gottlieb retired in 72 or 73, the project retired with him. By then, it had been pared down to almost nothing. Or they just implemented the practices. They stopped studying it and then implemented it. So by then it had been pared down to almost nothing as the agency focused on other ways to halt communism and sway policymaking abroad and at home. Still, when the Watergate scandal and the CIA's involvement in it consumed the nation in the early 70s, it occurred to the agency leadership that it might be prudent to cover their tracks. Director Richard Helms ordered Gottlieb to destroy all MK-Ultra files. In January of 1973, the technical services staff shredded countless documents describing the use of hallucinogens, including every single known copy of a manual called LSD, Some Unpsychedelic Implications. MK-Ultra evaporated. Grandiose and sinister. Let me take a drink. Where are we at? We're an hour deep. It's already 2. Jeez. In their haste to purge their misdeeds, The agents forgot about a cache of some 16,000 additional papers in an off-site warehouse. Even internally, those files would remain undiscovered for several years, but it was only a matter of time until the story broke. MK Ultra had become fodder for rumors around Washington. In December of '74, the project finally came to light in a terrific flash of headlines and intrigue. Seymour Hersh reported on it in the front page of the New York Times. Huge CIA operation reported in the U.S. against anti-war forces. 3 government investigations followed, all hobbled by the CIA's destruction of its files. When records were available, they were redacted. When witnesses were summoned, they were forgetful. First came the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commission, each mentioned earlier regarding chaos and COINTELPRO. The Church Committee's final report unveiled a 1957's internal evaluation of MK Ultra by the CIA Inspector General. Precautions must be taken, the document warned, to conceal these activities from the American public in general. The knowledge that the agency is engaging in unethical and illicit activities could have serious repercussions. In 1963, review from Inspector General, a 1963 review from the Inspector General put it even more gravely. A final phase of the testing of MK Ultra products places the rights and interests of U.S. citizens in jeopardy. In fact, as the U.S. No, where am I even seeing U.S. nothing? In fact, as the Church Committee's report went on, MK Ultra had caused the deaths of at least 2 American citizens. One was a psychiatric patient who'd been injected with a synthetic mescaline derivative. The other was Frank Olson, a CIA-contracted scientist who'd been unwittingly dosed with LSD at a small agency gathering in the backwoods of Maryland, presided over by Gottlieb himself. Olson fell into an irreparable depression afterwards, which led him to hurl himself out the window of a New York City hotel where agents had brought him for treatment. Continued investigations by Olson's son, Eric, strongly suggest that the CIA arranged for the agents to fake his suicide. They threw him out the window themselves out of fear that he would blow the whistle on MK Ultra and the military's use of biological weapons in the Korean War. The news of Olson's death shocked a nation already reeling from Watergate, and now less inclined than ever to trust its institutions. The government tried to quell the controversy by passing new regulations on human experimentation. But scrutiny and internal pressure on the CIA continued to mount until the agency was forced to make an admission. It hadn't destroyed everything. It had come to their attention that thousands of pages of MK Ultra were collecting dust in the off-site warehouse. So came another congressional investigation, more robust than the last, with 16,000 additional pages of documentation at its disposal. Senators Ted Kennedy and Daniel Inouye subpoenaed a number of CIA spooks. Among them was Gottlieb, rousted from his retirement in California and forced to defend his actions before the Senate, or rather before some of the Senate. Gottlieb claimed that his heart condition precluded the possibility of his addressing the whole chamber. Instead, he was installed in an anteroom where he answered questions from a select group while the masses listened over a public address system. As the New York Times pointed out, Gottlieb managed to elude the lights and the microphones and the crush of reporters awaiting for him in the Senate hearing room. He was spared the sight of the incredulity that spread. I feel like I know that word, incredulity that spread over their faces as he admitted that he had destroyed MK Ultra's files, not to cover up illegal activity, but because this material was sensitive and capable of being misunderstood. He resented the harm done to his reputation, and he was loath to provide specifics about MK Ultra experiments, saying he'd never witnessed any himself. Gottlieb's destruction of the MKUltra files was a federal crime. It was investigated by the Justice Department in '76, but according to the Times, quietly dropped. His brutal courses of experimentation broke any number of laws, and his perjury that day did too, but he was never prosecuted. He'd testified before the Senate only under the condition that he received total criminal immunity. So if he received immunity, isn't that like getting a pardon? Why didn't he just plead the fifth to every question? Hashtag Fauci. As for those 16,000 new pages, they were mainly financial records, but a few more tantalizing documents found the CIA explicating its ambitions. Hang on, Michael. I'll get caught up in the chat here soon. I'm just trying to get comfy. I've been sitting here for a while. You too, probably. As for the 16,000 pages, oh yeah, can we obtain ambitions? There it was. Can we obtain control of the future activities, physical and mental, of any individual, willing or unwilling, with a guarantee of amnesia? They asked. Can we force an individual to act against his own moral concepts? And can an individual be made to perform an act of attempted assassination? Butler. Senate investigators condemned MKUltra unanimously. Kennedy branded it perverse and corrupt, an erosion of the freedom of individuals and institutions in the name of national security. God, they keep doing that, don't they? You want to be safe? Then you need to be on camera at all times. In your car, walking down the street, in your home, at the beach, in the bathroom, probably. I always feel like, anyway, public bathrooms, I always feel like I'm on camera. So, Inouye's called it grandiose and sinister. The CIA's new director, Stansfield Turner, swore that he'd sent all existing MKUltra files to the Justice Department, which would mount a thorough investigation. Still, between the destruction of records and the subpoenaed agent's sudden memory lapses, everyone knew that the full facts, as the New York Times editorialized, may never come out. The Senate demanded the formation of a federal program to locate the victims of MKUltra experiments and to pursue criminal charges against the perpetrators. That program never coalesced. Surviving records named 80 institutions, including 44 universities and colleges, 185 researchers, among them Louis J. West. The New York Times identified him in a front-page lead story, no less, as one of 7 suspected scientists who secretly participated in MKUltra under academic cover. And yet not one researcher was ever federally investigated. Only 2 victims were ever notified. The Times called the MKUltra a secret 25-year, $25 million effort by the CIA to learn how to control the human mind. It looked like no one would suffer any consequences for it. Griffin Bell, the Attorney General at the time of the revelations, told me the files never arrived at the Justice Department, despite Stansfield Turner's sworn claim to the contrary. Bell said they must have just fallen through the cracks. As for Turner himself, he told me he could no longer remember having testified that the CIA sent the files. I'm just drawing a total blank here, he said. I read his remarks back to him. I guess I did testify about this, he said. Somebody fed me stuff and I played it back. The New York Times ran 27 stories on MKUltra, 8 on the front page, but no one in the press corps and none of the senators involved followed up to see that the promised investigations took place. Since then, the program's bewildering significance has been engulfed many times over by other controversies. Receding in the rear view, it looks like just another example of the CIA's megalomania at the zenith of the Cold War. Oh my God, we still have this much of the chapter. We might do a part 2 tomorrow. Or we'll see. Where did I start? There's a, that's 10. There's a song called Mind Control by Oliver Tree. It's catchy, and it's in my head right now. Because this chapter is called Mind Control. What? All right. Jolly West, CIA asset. When I started visiting the UCLA library, I had no idea that Jolly West had created a laboratory disguised as a hippie crash pad in the Haight. I had found early research papers of his, but not much else, and for a long while, my days in the library were fruitless. West's archive comprised 200 boxes, most of them full of ephemera. There were tons of press clippings. West had tracked the media's coverage of assassinations, the CIA, aggression in cats, psychosurgery, capital punishment, alcoholism among Native Americans, behavior modification, and the civil rights movement, among other subjects. I was intrigued to see so many clippings on the Manson murders and papers by Roger Smith and Dave Smith and Alan Rose. Part of the reason that West became my white whale was that, improbably enough, I'd already interviewed him since in 1995, a few years before his death, when I was still reporting celebrity features for U.S. and Premiere. I was doing a piece on the uptick in celebrity stalkers, and West was one of the scientific experts I consulted. When I'd spoken with psychiatrists before, I was the one who did all the talking. This time, it was all West, who droned on for so long that I cut the interview short. Now that felt like a lifetime ago as I settled in for the long haul at the library. My early certainty began to falter. My first visit had been on June 12, 2001. I'd leave the campus every evening wondering if I was wasting my time, having found nothing and gotten no closer to wrapping up my reporting. The basement of the library came to feel like my underground bunker. More than 2 months went by. I kept sifting and taking notes. On August 25th, among a batch of research papers on hypnosis, I found them. Letters between West and his CIA handler, Sherman Grifford. I didn't recognize the name, so as soon as I got home, I began tearing through every book I had that mentioned MKUltra, hoping that it would jump out at me. In the first, more definitive of the bunch, John Marks, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. There it was, buried in a footnote. CIA operators and agents had cover names, it said, even in classified documents. Gottlieb was Sherman R. Grifford. Whoa, it says that legit. So West really had lied all those years. Not only was he a part of MKUltra, he'd corresponded with the Black Sorcerer of MKUltra himself. Preserved in the files, the letters picked up midstream with no prologue or preliminaries. The first one was dated June 11th, 1953, a mere 2 months after MKUltra started. West was then chief of psychiatric services at the Air Base in Lackland, Texas. Addressing Gottlieb as SG, he outlined the experiments he proposed to perform using a combination of psychotropic drugs and hypnosis. Enumerating short and long-term goals, he offered a 9-point list, beginning with a plan to discover the degree to which information can be extracted from presumably unwilling subjects. Through hypnosis alone or in combination with certain drugs, possibly with subsequent amnesia for the interrogation, and or alteration of the subject's recollection of the information he formerly knew. Another item proposed honing techniques for implementing false information into particular subjects, or for inducing in them specific mental disorders. West wanted to reverse someone's belief system without his knowledge and make it stick. He hoped to create couriers who would carry a long and complex message, embedded secretly in their minds, and to study the induction of trance states by drugs. All these were the goals of MKUltra, and they bore a striking resemblance to Manson's accomplishments with his followers more than a decade later. Needless to say, West added, the experiments must eventually be put to the test in practical trials in the field. West's colleagues wouldn't approve of his activities. He yearned to cut down considerably the number of people who can properly call me to account, because he'd be using the drugs that were not on the Air Force list of standard preparations. He wanted to secure some sort of carte blanche. He would go on to suggest a number of security measures in his letters, including disguised funding, double envelopes, and false names. Next, West addressed a sensitive matter. Who would the guinea pigs be? He listed 4 groups: basic airmen, volunteers, patients, and others, possibly including prisoners in the local stockade. Only the volunteers would be paid. The others would be unwilling, and though it wasn't spelled out, unwitting. It'd be easier to preserve his secrecy if he was inducing specific mental disorders in people who already exhibited them. Certain patients require hypnosis and therapy, or suffering from dissociative disorders, trance, fugues, amnesia, etc., might lend themselves to our experiments. As if to prove his thoroughness, he affixed 2 addenda to his 4-page letter, begging Gottlieb to get one of his superiors, a Major Robert Williamson, transferred to another base. Robert Williams, was an uncontrollable close scrutinizer of all my activities, who believed that hypnosis was tampering with the soul, West complained. Gottlieb's reply came on letterhead from Chemrophil Associates, a front company he used to correspond with MK Ultra subcontractors. My good friend, he wrote, I had been wondering whether your apparent rapid and comprehensive grasp of our problems could possibly be real. You have indeed developed an admirably accurate picture of exactly what we're after. For this, I'm deeply grateful. He would arrange top-secret clearance for anyone who might become ensnared in their work, giving West a separate sum for the purchase of materials. Gottlieb saluted his new recruit. We have developed quite an asset in the relationship we are developing with you. West returned the camaraderie. It makes me very happy to realize that you consider me an asset, he replied. Surely there is no more vital undertaking conceivable in these times. With that, the record of their correspondence ceased for nearly 9 months. When it resumed in April of 1954, West had begun arrangements to relocate to the University of Oklahoma School of Medicine, which wanted him to head its psychiatry department. He would be a civilian again. Gottlieb commended his new look, noting, it appears at the moment to be a move which would be, in the long run, beneficial for us. He signed off immediately. Give my regards to your family. Intimately, immediately. My bad, y'all. You loved my hashtag Fauci. Thanks, Dakota. All right. There it is. West had lied to his prospective employer, writing, my present job is purely clinical and I've been doing no research, classified or otherwise. The university took him at his word. Now performing his duties for Gottlieb at both the university and the Air Force Base, West asked the judge advocate at Lackland for permission to accept money from Gerschichter Fund for Medical Research, which he called a nonprofit private research foundation. In fact, as the CIA later acknowledged, Gerschichter was another of Gottlieb's fictions, enabling him to keep West and other researchers properly paid. By April of 1955, West had moved permanently to Oklahoma City, but the Air Force insisted he return to Lackland weekly to serve out the remainder of his contract. Gottlieb, who'd evidently attempted to pull some strings, wrote in September of 1954 to relay some frustrating news. The Air Force will not release you. Although this rather adequately stops our present effort, it does not erase the need for research in the field. I'm suggesting, therefore, that you give some thought to the period some 20 months hence and the plans which might be made in the interim. 20 months would have put them in April of 1956. That year, West reported back to the CIA that the experiments had begun in 1953, had at last come to fruition. He was ensconced in a civilian institution, and evidently he found it a less oppressive setting than Lackland had been. In a paper titled The Psychophysiological Studies of Hypnosis and Suggestibility, he claimed to have achieved the impossible. He knew how to replace true memories with false ones in human beings without their knowledge. In case the CIA didn't grasp the significance of this, he put it in layman's terms. It has been found to be feasible to take the memory of a definite event in the life of an individual and, through hypnotic suggestion, bring about the subsequent conscious recall to the effect that this event never actually took place, but that a different fictional event actually did occur. The document marked classified was right there in West's files. I had to assume that the CIA had destroyed any copies. They'd never publicly acknowledged West's groundbreaking deed. He'd done it, he claimed, by administering new drugs effective in speeding the induction of hypnotic state and in deepening the trance that could be produced in given subjects. As in his initial experiments, West performed most of these psychiatric feats on mental health patients. The necessity to obtain most of the subject material from a population of psychiatry patients made standardized observations very difficult. He groused. In the report, which doubled as a request for continued funding, a successful request, West received government backing through 1965. When was that done? 56? Dang, what is that, 9 years worth of pay? He enthusiastically described a high-tech laboratory he planned to construct at Oklahoma. It would include a special chamber where various hypnotic, pharmacologic, and sensory environmental variables will be manipulated. Is that where we got those, like, cocoon things? Sensory deprivation chambers? Buy your own. I don't have any pause. Oh, did I just turn the page? Is that what just happened? Yes. What am I putting my foot on here? Okay. So West had hypnotized mental patients and normal subjects and exposed them to a host of drugs, including chlorpromazine, resperpine, amphetamines, and LSD, the same ones that David Smith would inject in his confined rodents about a decade later. Of course, at least 2 of these, LSD especially, would prove instrumental in the Manson family group psychology. But when it came to elaborating on his findings about implanting memories and controlling thoughts, West skimped on the details. He seemed to have been in a rudimentary phase of his research. Acid, he wrote, made people more difficult to hypnotize. It was better to pair hypnosis with long bouts of isolation and sleep deprivation. Using hypnotic suggestion, he claimed, a person can be told that it is now a year later, and during the course of this year, many changes have taken place. So that is now acceptable for him to discuss matters that he previously felt he should not discuss. An individual who insists he desires to do one thing will reveal that secretly he wishes just the opposite. Since West's paper was light on specifics, it's hard to know if it was only a ploy for more funding. Whatever it was, the CIA felt it had to keep it under wraps. When the agency was forced to disclose MKUltra to the public, they submitted and expurgated, EXPURGATED, who's got me? Thank you, Prince Scott. Girl, I like that. Said, girl, you got some hair. Go on now, get, little tiger. That's funny. The guy on a buffalo. Get out of here, kitty cat. I took a picture in front of a buffalo today, Dakota. I'm going to post that for you. Because I said, literally, guy on a buffalo and took the shot. But I'm not a guy. I'm not trans. I'll just get that out of the way because that's what y'all always ask. Trying to be rude. Good morning. From Sweden, Tommy. They reject the nonsense he speaks about. Okay, what was the word again? Where was I? It was expurgated version of West's papers to Congress, an act of deception that never been exposed. At the National Security Archives in D.C., I found the versions of the psychological studies of hypnosis and suggestibility that the CIA had turned over to the Senate. West's name and affiliations were redacted as expected, but what shocked me was that the Senate's version didn't include West's 9-page attachment, but rather an unsigned summary. There was no mention of West's triumphant accomplishment, the replacement of the memory of a definite event in the life of an individual with a fictional event. In sworn testimony, the CIA said that everything it shared with Congress was intact, except for the redactions of researchers and institutions' names. Now it turned out they hadn't just censored West's report, they'd completely misrepresented its contents. The 1-page summary of West's accomplishments in the lab doesn't exist in West's original. The new page was only a theoretical discussion of LSD, of its possible effects on dissociative states. It concluded the effects of these agents, LSD and other drugs, upon the production, maintenance, and manifestations of dissociative states has never been studied. West, of course, had studied those effects for years and years. It could only conclude that the CIA misrepresented the original documents to mislead the Senate's committee, thus striking West's research from the official record. As was my habit whenever I found hard evidence of a cover-up, I started dwelling on one question after another. Didn't this counterfeit paper cast doubt on the entire cache of documents released to the Senate in 1977? If West's authentic paper had been so fuzzy about the effects of drugs, including LSD, on dissociative states, why had the CIA felt the need to generate a fake version? Maybe because West had achieved one of MKUltra's most coveted goals. Despite testimony to the contrary, the CIA had, in fact, learned how to manipulate people's memories without their knowledge. Agency officials claimed the program had been a colossal failure, leading newspapers to run mocking headlines like, "The gang that couldn't spray straight." It could have been exactly what the agency wanted, for the world to assume MKUltra was a bust and forget the whole thing. One thing was indisputable. The CIA falsified documents, invalidated the Senate investigation's findings. The agency lied, obstructed justice, and tampered with evidence, and the West documents prove it. It's a G, not a J. Yeah. Oh. No, it's spelled with a G here. Oh, expedited, of course. No, it's expurgated. 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 We're learning together. Handsome, huge tiger. Get your own. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Ricky. Sorry, I just read the chat. Listening as you doze off. I'm glad. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making people think it wasn't real. You know what they do now? They just stop talking about it. Are we still talking about the Epstein files? I'm gonna you. Maybe because West, yes, in the document code. So given the furtive nature of his research, West could be surprisingly garrulous. Among the press clippings in his file were 2 items from Portland, Oregon newspapers, both dated October of '63. The murky periods between his Oklahoma hypnosis studies and the Haight-Ashbury project. West had given an address to the Mental Health Association of Oregon, letting it slip that he was inducing insanity in the lab. He framed these studies as positive developments. They might someday cure mental illness. "We are at the dawning of a new era," West told the crowd, learning for the first time to produce temporary mental derangement in the laboratory. The Oregon Journal noted that West listed the new hallucination drug LSD along with other drugs hypnosis, and sleep deprivation as some of the things that he was using to produce temporary mental illness effects in normal people. Reporting that West had done extensive work with LSD, the journal continued. The most important contributions of the drug so far is producing model mental illnesses. Almost 15 years later, besieged by reporters after the New York Times alleged that he'd taken part in MK Ultra's secret LSD experimentation program. West insisted that all of this LSD work had been confined to animals, denying any CIA affiliation. When reporters pointed out that he'd received an awful lot of money from the agency, he retorted that he had no idea what the Gerschter Fund and other services were CIA fronts. Legally, the CIA was obligated to tell the University of Oklahoma that one of its faculty had been on the agency payroll. Oklahoma revealed a heavily redacted memo saying that an unnamed professor, West, I confirmed through financial records, had been investigating a number of dissociative phenomena on humans in the lab, including an exceptionally rare clinical disorder known as LATA, a neurotic condition marked by automatic obedience. LATAH. Did I say it right, Dakota? Expurgated means a book, play, or other text has parts removed because someone thinks those parts are bad, rude, or offensive. Expurgated. Expurgated. Elias, welcome back. Hello. Good to see you. All right. Do people call you Eli, or do you like Elias? Or do they call you E? Are you like Big E? E, Elias. Good to see you. Where was I? Obedience, Lata. All right, none of the allegations harmed West's reputation. By then, he'd left Oklahoma for UCLA, where he offered a steady stream of denials and continued to thrive through his retirement in 1988. Ooh, I was 6. Irascible and arrogant. Irascible, IRASCIBLE. Irascible, maybe, and arrogant. He was quick to threaten lawsuits when anyone brought up the charges. Sometimes he threw in diversionary tactics. In a 1991 rebuttal, he claimed, "My secret connection to Washington, D.C. is not as a spook, but rather as a confidential advisor to presidents, from Eisenhower to Bush. Democrat, Republican presidents alike have freely sought and received my counsel." In a 1993 letter to the editor of the UCLA Bruin, he had the temerity to compare his accusers to Nazi propagandists. That is such an old-timey technique. In Goebbels' tradition of the big lie, West added, "I've never taken part in mind control, experiments funded by the CIA or anybody else." A statement belied by his own files. The misadventures of Jolly West. Even before his CIA connections came out, West's experiments got him in plenty of trouble. In 1972, he announced plans to build a lab in the abandoned Nike missile base in Santa Monica Mountains. Is it Nike missile base? Santa Monica Mountains? It's a mystery. I'll just call you Elias then. Is that a Nike missile base in the Santa Monica Mountains? He would call it the Center for the Study and Reduction of Violence. And that's the whole premise for Mind War by Michael Aquino. Why did it come up? Like there was a comment and then it disappeared? All right. Plasma Zombie. Why do you keep asking me if... That's the second... Are you the same person asking me if I'm... I am wearing my jammies. Mind your business. Up north of Devonshire, Breaking Bad done by a psychologist instead of a chemist. Yeah, Michael, big time. I'm glad you stuck around. Yeah. Off of DeSoto Ave. Is it called Nike? That's weird to me. Nike. You don't have what, Plasma? You don't have jammies? I am too. I'm wearing a bra. Awesome. It isn't that huge, actually. The Devil's Notebook was longer than this one. It is total of, it's over 500 pages. We've got 522 pages. Who doesn't have jammies? It was a Nike type missile. I'm gonna look that up later. There, in perfect isolation, he could study the origins and control of human violence by experimenting on prisoners. Governor Ronald Reagan gave the Violence Center a full-throated endorsement. Of course he did. But West's proposal for grant money landed him in hot water. He planned to test radical forms of behavioral modification, implanting electrodes and remote monitoring devices in prisoners' brains. A federal investigation concluded that the program involved coercive methods that threatened privacy and self-determination. The committee's disclosure stymied the Violence Center before it got past the planning stages. The California legislature vetoed the project. UCLA's student body rose up in protest of West. And this, to reiterate, was before anyone had a clue about his CIA work. Now I could tie West to the highest, most clandestine echelons of the Central Intelligence Agency. I could tie him to both of the Smiths, the authority figures from Manson's lost year in San Francisco, and through his efforts to open the Violence Center, I could tie him to the bigwigs in the LAPD and the DA's office who'd helped prosecute Manson. But I could never prove that he had examined Manson himself, or even that they had ever met. Nor had West taken part in Manson's trial. His absence was conspicuous. One of the world's leading experts in brainwashing and cults, he was hardly averse to publicity. He'd appeared as a witness many times before. Manson was tried in his own backyard. The proceedings were international news, yet West went nowhere near them. It's kind of like how conspicuous it is that Trump doesn't talk about his ear or who did it and why. And it sucks that the dude who died's wife had to come out and be like, something's fishy here. And she's like, I don't know. I saw 20 seconds of her and, a long time since her husband died, and she still looked like a wreck. She still looked like a mess, and you could tell she was grieving her husband. But every time we see Erica Kirk, she's freaking giddy. Every time somebody's specifically talking about the death of her husband, she's beaming. So, anyway. I told David Smith about the CIA research and its parallels with Manson. The agency had wanted to accomplish exactly what Manson succeeded in doing with the girls. I was wondering whether someone in the CIA influenced Manson while he was in San Francisco. I don't know, he said, but the military experiments are added proof that my hypnosis is correct. My hypothesis is correct, that it can be done. That you can brainwash with LSD? He nodded. The CIA maintained they were never able to accomplish that, I said. In part because they were basically taking normal subjects, he said, not susceptible girls in a reinforcing environment. When he evaluated Susan Atkins for a parole hearing 10 years after she'd separated from Manson, she was still under his control. I can't get him out of my head, she told him. He's still in my brain. But was brainwashing really even possible? I'd always believed the Cold War era paranoia was had overstated the potential for Manchurian candidates taught to kill by dastardly commies. On the other hand, I'd accepted that Charles Manson had altered his followers' minds, and that LSD did a lot of the heavy lifting. He'd seemed to have an endless supply of the drug, though no one said how he got it. Plus, he was so often described as hypnotic. Ed Sanders had written in The Family of a Hypnotist. The Family's that book. William Deanier, who managed a Sunset Strip club and alleged that let me start over. I was stumbling all over that. Ed Sanders had written in the family of a hypnotist, William Denier, who managed a Sunset strip club and alleged that he taught Manson how to hypnotize. It seemed dubious, but I confirmed that Denier had learned hypnosis in the Navy, and his daughter told me she'd seen her father teaching Manson at the club. With Alan Shefflin, a forensic psychologist and law professor who'd written a book on MK-Ultra, I'd laid out a circumstantial case linking West to Manson. Was it possible, I asked, that the Manson murders were an MK-Ultra experiment gone wrong? No, he said. An MK-Ultra experiment gone right. In the back of my mind was the most confounding passage in Helter Skelter, one that I had underlined, highlighted, and finally torn out and taped above my computer. The most puzzling question of all, Bugliosi wrote, was how Manson had turned his docile followers into remorseless killers. Even with the LSD, the sex, the isolation, the sleep deprivation, the social abandonment, there had to be some intangible quality. It may be something he had learned from others. Emphasis on something he had learned from others. Those had become the 6 most pivotal words in the book for me. I was more compelled than ever to peel back every layer of West's past, hoping that some tie to Manson would come out, or that I'd get the name of someone who knew the name of someone who could confirm that the two had met. In one way, on the way, I discovered some fearsome episodes from West's past. As a self-styled brainwashing expert, he had been present whenever mind control reared its ugly head in American culture. Murders, assassinations, kidnappings, cults, prisoners of war. His fingerprints were on all of them. Maybe I should stop here. I still got at least another hour in this chapter. 2:30. As the crow flies, there's about 7 miles between the Nike missile base at the end of DeSoto Ave and the Manson Spawn Ranch hangout. Wow. LSD is embalming fluid. See? Michael, I knew it. They called it formaldehyde. They put it in a drink. And my brother lost time and had to crawl home. 12, I'm way late to this read. How is it to this point? We're on chapter 11, Mike Vance, but I've got a whole playlist. You can start from the beginning if you want me to read it to you. Elias. I'm on chapter 11. Sorry, thank you to cut off topic, but you remind me of that former actress. Phoebe Cates. That rings a bell, but I'm not sure. It's a distant bell. Dorian, good to see you again. I am going to stop here. So we're going to start tomorrow with part 2, The Curious Case of Jimmy Shaver. We can chat, though, before I go, if you'd like to. Oh. You're a WI Mike. Flash dancer. Is that the same lady? Do I look like her? I don't think so. You're welcome, Mike. She reads a chapter and I try to. We're splitting up this one. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You mean the dark girl who like shakes her dandruff onto her drawing and eats cereal in her sandwich? That's funny. She dumps her purse out. I always use that. Like when I overshare, I always say that I've dumped my purse out in front of people. And if they haven't seen that, wait, Fast Times at Ridgemont High? I thought you meant Breakfast Club. That's what I thought. The girl from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I don't know that I've seen that enough to know that is the Breakfast Club. I love that you guys know what I'm talking about. Do we have a different opinion on Manson? I think it's evolving. I think he was definitely a pawn. The pool scene. The pool scene. I've only seen that movie a couple of times. You saw him on January 6th. Are you being serious? You'd be old and feeble by now, huh? Look at Your Game, Girl is actually a fire song for the time. Look at Your Game, Girl. Breakfast Club was, what, about hallucinations? Charlie can write a song. No kidding. Yeah. I'm going to try to start at midnight. You don't get notifications? Try to go back to the subscribe button, click the bell again, and make sure you hit all. I keep hearing that from new subscribers. They are like, I don't get notified, and they come on later. But it's about midnight Central Time that I go on because everybody's in bed, and I finally have time to be here. Media actually blurs out his forehead tattoo. Really? Send a link. I don't even know how I could track that down. I did know he wrote music, but I didn't, did you say a name of his song? Because what did you say? You said, where's yours? You're a red dot. I'm trying to go back, Elias. Oh, okay, I can't find it. Let's just move on. Look at Your Game, Girl is, all right. All right. I may have. The dark-haired girl hallucinated the whole movie? Whoa. I was at a, like a Goodwill, and I found a old Blockbuster puzzle rental in the Blockbuster case. Do you remember you used to be able to get like board games and stuff and puzzles from Blockbuster? Family movie night, game night. That's funny. Yes, Divining Rod. Wow. Why is Hunter Biden doing a press tour? He was on with Candace, and then, he was on Rogan first, and then Candace, and then Nick Fuentes, and now Tucker. What's he doing? What's that? What is that about, do you think? Let me see something quick. Nope, wrong one. Okay. Ew, I'm playing. Okay, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. I was just rolling up somebody's earplug in a band room. Did you ever see his scar? It looks like he is as old as Harry Potter or Lee Harvey Oswald when you compare scars. I know Tucker's building a third party, but what does that have to do with Hunter Biden? What does it have to do with Hunter Biden? Bluetooth. Ted Kaczynski was part of the MK. I think so. For sure, he was isolated. He was nuts. Oh, there he goes. Psycho Gemini. You're out. You're out. Yep. Done. Just nip that in the bud. Ted was dosed. Yeah, what about the Waco guy? That Ted Kaczynski? No, that was the Unabomber. But the Waco guy. His manifesto? Or was it Ted Kaczynski? I'm blending them. Gary, are you? Or Ted was. Philip. Good to meet you. Yes, Ted Kaczynski's manifesto. Yeah. Cool, you guys. You are? All right. Well, be careful. Drink water. Drink some water. I feel sorry for you tomorrow, though. I don't know. How old are you, Gary? Hunter's laptop was online almost 3 years before Congress started talking about it. Yeah, it was almost like they needed it. Now we need a bedtime story. What? Almost it is live within how? What do you mean, Deco? Biden. Your stomach hurts? Philip, go poop. That's what I tell my kids when they tell me their stomach hurts. I'm like, go poop. You'll be all right. How many almost it is without them in there? Deco, I don't know what you're saying. Decoy BC1. How many what? How many almost is it without them in there? The Bidens won't go away. It is kind of a dynasty. He was certainly like, Obama wasn't lying when he said he would love to put somebody in the White House and then run it from his basement. Run the country from his basement. Like, that checks out. It checks out to what happened. Is Jesus a real savior or an agent? Wow, he came to me. Jesus is real, and he loves you. He loves me too. He gives me the creeps a little bit too. But he's the reason why I wanted to read Devil's Chessboard, and that's why that was the last book I read. Hunter Biden on cocaine, not you. Oh, yeah. I know, that is the other thing. I mean, I watched him with Candace. I felt like he was either still pushing propaganda or still under the influence of propaganda. And he was talking like that Devil's Chessboard book was the authority on the truth about the CIA, when I think it was used to steer people away from the truth of the CIA by letting you in to see a little bit of the secrets. Yeah, Mike Vance. He let it go. You know it is with how many almost it is. I don't understand what you mean, Decoy BC1. Limited hangout. I don't know what you're saying. I can't, I want, how many it is almost in there live. What do you mean? No, I want to understand what you're saying, but half-truth maxing, big time. Controlled opposition, yeah. Almost it with it is. Are you using a translation app or something? Because it's malfunctioning, my friend. Yeah. I know, it's almost like maybe he doesn't and he's trying. That's okay. I'm so glad that you guys were here with me tonight and that I keep seeing some of you new faces and repeat attendance and so forth. And sweet Ricky, he's probably asleep. If you're not asleep, he'll come and tell me that he's not asleep and he'll wave or something. Decoy, you a massage shill from Israel? I'm like, hi Zig, you're new here? Well, welcome. I do a book club. So you want a bedtime story? You want to get crazy in the chat? See, he's awake. Guess what Jimmy Hoffa's middle name is? His middle name is Riddle? Jimmy Riddle Hoffa? Or are you telling me a riddle? It is almost with it is in Trump love. Decoy? I feel like I'm talking. So, Chaos. And that's funny because I knew a dog named Chaos with a K, but it's Chaos by Tom O'Neill. And there is a special on Netflix. His interview on Rogan was fantastic, or his podcast. Jimmy Riddle Hoffa, that's crazy. Gary. It is almost with it is in truth, Trump's love. Devil's Chessboard. You can, or you can go watch the playlist. I made a playlist already for it. So Hello, Allison. No, he's a reporter. He's not a doctor. He's a reporter. I mean, yeah. Let's see what it says about him. Is there a page for him? They're usually about the author. Tom O'Neill is an award-winning investigative journalist whose work has appeared in Premiere, New York, The Village Voice, and Details. Tom-O'Neill, ONEILL.org. So, fantastic book, though. Yeah. The playlist, it is almost sent alive it with books. I don't understand, friend. Did you know the CIA doctor visited Jack Ruby in jail? They talked about, West. They said it was West who visited him in jail, and after his meeting, he left and told the guards, I think he just had a psychotic break, probably because he gave him a mega dose of, I am almost done reading this book. You read almost it with the book on or not is in scent. I read the whole book. That's the book club. You don't have to, no purchase necessary. I read to you and we discuss it as we go. That's the whole channel. I mean, I do make shorts and I post a lot of stuff. Yes, Jack Rubenstein. And if you've ever watched, I don't know, it was tradition in my house to watch The Last Waltz on Thanksgiving. And they have a story about playing in Jack Ruby's club. I don't know if I'm not reading any Trump books. I'm like, I read The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and YouTube keeps pulling those. I've read The Tavistock Institute, which is about brainwashing and mind control. I read Mind War, which is about brainwashing and mind control and the CIA, or not the CIA, but like the military, how they use mind war instead of physical war. They want to, unless, Israel has anything to say about it. And that I felt relevant because it was co-authored / commissioned by a current TPUSA board member. And Michael Aquino is a Satanist, and he used the occult in order to develop his techniques or game plans or whatever. And then I read the book of Enoch because of disclosure and everything. I'm like, let's get a handle on some of these old stories so we can see the context of what they're going to try and tell us. And then after that was, the book of Enoch was The Devil's Chessboard, right? Yes. And now Chaos. I haven't been doing this very long, but we've gotten through quite a few books. Yeah, the band. Levon Helm wrote a book after the fact that totally crushed my whole view of The Last Waltz, which was an op by Martin Scorsese. He wanted to break up the band and take Robbie Robertson. No, Robbie wanted to break up the band. Scorsese wanted to film the last show. They called it The Last Waltz. And like Neil Diamond was in it, and the rest of the band was like, who's this friggin' jagoff? And Joni Mitchell, nobody wanted her there either, even though I know a lot of people love her. But she got it was frowned upon because they threw in artists that they wanted to promote. But like, what's his name, who did Brown Eyed Girl? Van Morrison killed Bob Dylan, Ronnie White, right? Ronnie Hawkins, that's what I meant. Ronnie Hawkins killed also. And the Weight, sung by the, and Evangeline. Man, that show. My stomach hurt. Can you give me my stomach? About the book. Neil Diamond is the most successful recording artist ever. Is he? Or is it like Michael Jackson or something. Ooh, my battery's gonna die. All right, y'all. Cool chatting. I'll see you tomorrow. Be here. Like, subscribe, comment on the video after it posts. Bye, Mike. I'm so glad we got to hang out. All of you. The Mikes, the Eliases, Philip, Divining Rod, Ricky, Michael, Decoy. Not sure what's going on there, but it's cool to, like, you know, try to guess what you're saying. Allison stopped by for a moment. Dakota, thank you for being here. Zigmatus, you said you're new here. I hope that means you're going to come back. Gary. Yes, and Gary. I thought you were on cocaine, friend, but it wasn't even you. All right. Oh, yeah, and what was that? The one, Tiger. The Tiger guy. Is he the same guy who wanted to buy my socks? I don't know. Flock. All right, y'all. Elias. I already said Elias. Dorian. Calvin. Yeah, I can't keep my white t-shirt clean either. Because I wear a crossbody purse and it's got a chain right there and it always leaves residue. Anyway, no drugs here. All right. Tiger seems like he's into baby paws and feet. Yeah. 13, go Michael Jackson. Love you too. Okay, bye. Have a great night. I'll see y'all later. See y'all tomorrow. Be there.